So yeah, it's like if you can just have it keep on branching and have a separate thing, or you want it to like combine back together.
Okay. And then I guess like as you get to know the different ops, it's like, why is it looking like this? You have to figure out which one to adjust.
Yeah, and what's nice is like you can preview the steps, and that's like one like good thing that you don't you can see like, oh, that's where this happened and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. Zoom out.
Yeah, just zoom out. Just go through and ask what's plugged into comp2.
Comp2, so displace and the feedback.
One quirky thing, like if you're not using a mouse and you're using a Mac, you can hold control, and it's the same as that right-click drag. And Touchdesigner is kind of quirky, right? Like left-click moves the network around, but if you're selecting, if you want to drag select a whole bunch of nodes, it's a right-click. But if you're using a trackpad, you just hold control and it makes it easy.
Great.
So
we build our first little animation, and later we can go on. So like, how would we can make this? This is generative, so it's just keeps on changing and like on and on. But how do we like can play around to make this audio-reactive later on? We can have it to change different of these parameters. So like maybe the audio change this amplitude to beat that we can play with, or like the exponent, that's like a thing. We can also have it change the color. So maybe like afterwards here, you can add like a level is a common one where like, oh, the level can change like more common, the RGB, like the red, the low high G for the green. It can change the like edge thickness. That's another one. So just kind of give you a little preview of like where we're gonna go and how we can make something we build to be audio reactive. So we can have a lot of things kind of make it interactive too. It's like if you have a sensor, maybe rather than using audio, you can use like your hands to make it to like larger scale. Or if you using like data, maybe like for my project over there, it's like the temperature. Once it's hotter, it becomes more red. When it's cooler, it becomes more blue. And like that kind of how a way you can make things interactive is having changing the parameters depending what is controlling it.
I have been turning the air conditioning down too, by the way.
Now make it more red. And so if I go back up, so I see this base, and maybe I want to like preview what's inside of here, up here. If I select this base and in this common pad, it'll have this operator viewer option. And
how did you get there?
So I went up. So if you look at the path right now, we're inside top animation 1, if that's what I named it. You can select project 1, which goes up, or you can go to click on the U button, which means up. So I went up on top. If you didn't make a base and you just made an don't worry, it's not the end of the world. So you go up, you'll see the base. If you didn't make a base, a way you can make this into a box.
She made the base, but
cool.
she can take all the parameters and put them inside the base, right? Because they're next to the base.
Okay, so another.
So you select all these except the base, and then she can get into the base.
Yeah, you can do that, or another option is like maybe you did this and you're like, I want to put this all in a base. What you can do is select everything, and then right click on the on the network, and you can put collapse selected, and it'll put everything into a base. That's another option.
So I ignore where I don't know where that came from.
This is the base, and all these supposed to be inside the base, but you can do, like she said, like select everything and right click.
What is this down here? I didn't put this down.
So if I want this to view here, on this common page, this operator viewer, I can put the name of what I want inside. So like this null at the end, I name it out, capitalized. Whatever you named it, you can change this. So this dot period slash means like going inside. And I'm gonna just call this out. And then I can see my last operator.
Selected everything. I don't know what that is.
So this every network has a local, and that's just like the like everything that is referencing it. There's certain, like when you get into coding, you can have like change the frame rate or whatever inside here, but usually you can just ignore that, but don't delete it. So you can.
So that just came by itself as well.
So I'm gonna just select everything and right click and then collapse selected. And then now it's all inside a base. And you can name this, like, I'm gonna name it top animation 1.
Great, thank you.
And then, no problem. And then you name this out, great. And then in this parameter, common page, I'm gonna just leave this. So it's just, this dot slash means like what's referencing inside of it. And then now you see it over here.
Okay.
And I'm gonna save.
Thank you.
Cool. So we have our first little animation. Let's make our second little animation. We'll get a little more comfortable with tops, and we'll make it a little bit more stylized this time. I'll make another base. Have in here, just keeping things organized. I'll name this top animation 2. And inside, I'm going to go inside here.
How do you get inside except of zooming in?
You can press I for in. So I for in, U for up. And let's make a ramp. Actually, let's do what we did earlier again. Let's first put a constant chop so we can have the same thing to reference it for size. Getting more comfortable using constants or using chops. So constant, we did the same thing. We could copy and paste from the other one, but I feel like we could just get more practice. So this constant chop, make sure it's green because there's constant in different operator families. I'm going to call this resolution, res x. I'll add another channel and call this res y. And this, you can have whatever resolution you want, but I'm going to want it to be square. So I'm going to just have it 1080 by 1080 again. And after this, I'll add a null. And I'll also call this res null. Cool, great. Let's add a ramp top. So make sure you're now back to top layer. So ramp. Also, I think I did mention earlier, so when you typed in something and it's like highlighted and there's nothing else highlighted, you can also, rather than manually selecting, you can press return and then it'll just select it. Just make things a little bit faster.
Is the null that you added a chop as well?
Yes, so then just referring back to it. And this ramp, first thing, I'll change the resolution of it. So I'm going to make this viewer active again. And by clicking on the little plus button and just dragging it to what I want. So I want to change this resolution H and the width and height. So just drag into here and drag into here. And just kind of giving you guys note that a common mistake, maybe when you're playing with tops and you notice something's like pretty pixelated after you're compositing things together, it's most likely that somewhere early in the chain, the resolution is not changed. So it's like what we did early where you had the butterfly and it was all stretched because it was comping with a sky that was too big. That happens very common with noise, and kind of just give you a little example. If like I had a noise here and this noise is 256, and then maybe like I have a movie file in and this ramp that's bigger, and I composite this together. Maybe this is not the best example. Oh yeah, so or like maybe it's like stretched, or sometimes it just looks very pixelated. It's probably there's something that's not the same resolution, or something that's really small resolution that's kind of like messing everything up. So just a common mistake. Now back to the ramp. We'll go to the ramp page, and I'm gonna change this type to circular, but you can first just play around, see like, oh, vertical, how does it look like, radial, but I want it to be circular. And this circular ramp, I want it to keep on like growing bigger. Yeah, that is right. And then this period, you see that like it can increase the amount of like circles if you like drag over here. I will do that little Python thing, but rather, let's see what happens if I put abs time.frame. It's like, for ramp, it doesn't work as well. So ramp is like the one thing that I, rather than abs time.frame, I do abs time.seconds. And I don't really need to do a fraction to like have it not go crazy for this. Period, I'm gonna change to 0.5. But I kind of still want to slow it down for what I'm doing, so I'm going to put times 0.1.
Yeah, the phase, if it goes by whole numbers, you're kind of, like the phase is kind of 0 to 1 is the different spread. And so the frame doesn't work so well because it's whole numbers, it's jumping like a full rotation every time. So it looks like it's not moving, but it's actually moving a full 360 degrees every time.
And then you can change the color of this. I'm going to have it to be a little bit more blue. So blue to white is the look I want. Great. So I changed the period down to 0.5, phase, abs time.seconds times 0.1. And after this, I'm going to add a blur top. This blur top, I'm going to increase the pre-shrink up. I'm going to have 3, and the filter size to be 23. So it gets the line a lot more fuzzy. And after this blur, I'm going to add a displace top. And after this displace, I am going to just connect both of it together. It kind of looks a little bit like more watery. I don't know what's the best. And I'm going to lower this displace weight to be 0.1 to 0.1. Usually I change this displace weight down to 0.1 because so it's not so dramatic. Ooh. I'm gonna add, so I have a ramp, a blur. The blur is connected to a displace. After this, I'm gonna save, and I'm gonna add a noise. Oops. This noise top, it's a smaller resolution than this. I want it to be the same resolution. So on this comment page, I'm going to reference this resolution null. And again, I would select the chop reference. So you know if you're in chop reference when it's blue, this light blue. So now it's both the same 1080 by 1080, 1080 by 1080. So then when I want to have them combine again, it's not going to stretch or be weird. In this noise, I'm going to play around with the parameters again. Back to the noise page. You can do the same parameters or do a different one. I'm going to have the harmonics to be 1, the spread to be 0.5, the gain I'm going to lower it to 0.15, and I'm going to lower the exponent a little bit and increase the amplitude. Great. And after this displace, I'm going to add another displace. In this displace, I'm going to connect a noise as a second input. And it looks kind of crazy, but it'll look better after I lower this displace weight to be 0.1 and 0.1. I'm going to play around with this a little bit more. I'm going to increase this exponent. Cool. After this, I'm going to add some more things, but I'm going to just add a null now. I'm going to call this out, just so I can turn on and off having in the background if I want to see it closer. And not in this network yet. I'm going to add a rectangle top. And a rectangle top makes a rectangle. This rectangle top, it's a pretty small size, 256, 256. So I'm going to change this comment tab. I'm going to do what we did for the noise in the ramp. Reference this so they're all the same size. So you can.
Can you please repeat why we choose chop reference and not export chop?
So it's just good practice that. So then chop reference, it'll give the. Let me show you the other one. It gives the Python line, and it's as you go on, it's better to reference it through in script, and also kind of prevents more bugs later on.
Yeah,
Okay.
Export chop is actually something that's been around for like 15 years with Touchdesigner. Before they even added Python, it was just like a way to use a pointer.
Mm-hmm.
But without getting too in the weeds, the scripts, like longer term functionality, you'll probably want that. And personally, I actually learned Python from doing those and looking at the syntax and kind of reverse engineering, so it's pretty handy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like we've been dragging, but then then if you look at it, if you drop it down, you can see that's like saying like operator, res, null, and referencing which one. And then kind of like later on, you can just type it out rather than trying to find it and everything too. And also, we'll probably, when we get to like Audio-reactive, we'll do it. You can also like right click on the null and put view. And then you can also like use that to drag the parameters. So maybe like you have something that you're on reference all the way on the left side, but you don't want to drag it all the way over there. You can like have this view and then like use that way to also drag.
I do that a lot, even if I'm going in and out of boxes.
Yeah.
Trying to reference something somewhere else.
Great. So we have this box, this little rectangle. I'm going to keep the size 0.5 to 0.5, and I'm going to add a multiply after this. So a multiply is the same thing as a composite top that has a multiply. You'll notice some different of the different ways to composite. It has its own node. So like there's also a over, there's also an add, and that's the same thing as a composite top with selecting add or over and such. But if you know which way you want to do something, I think it's better to use that specific node. So I know I want to use a multiply, so I will just have this rectangle as the first input and this displace as a second input. And now this this animation is inside this rectangle. And after this, so it's still branched out of this out, and later on I'm gonna have it back together, but I'm gonna add a flip top. And after you add a flip, you notice like it looks the same, but if you use parameters, there's these options. I can flip it by X or flip it by Y. Have the displace on the rectangle? Yeah.
Or in type or in...
Yeah. So you can displace whatever top you want and stuff, but you just kind of play. So yeah, like if you have the displace later on, it's just kind of playing with the displace weight and what it is. It might change the frame of it more, but yeah, you can displace text. That's also like sometimes you have to displace and you have like little noise on it. Like if you have a text and like have very light noise, that's a way to kind of create motion too. So like a thing that like in certain products, like maybe you have a flag or you have water, you have like an image of a water, you can put a noise and then have the noise very light and displace it, and it makes the image of the water looks like it's moving as a way. And then you can also do that with text, where you have like in the past like kind of do a effect where you have a flag and you can make it look like the flag is moving through using a displace. Good question. And this flip afterwards, I'm gonna add a level. And I'm going to change this level, the RGBA. I'm going to change the color a bit. So I'm going to play with maybe having the green lower. So the high green, I'm going to put it to whatever you want. I'm going to have it like 0.6, 0.7, something around there. And after, I'm going to add a over top, which is pretty much the same. It is the same thing as a composite in over, but I know I want this over this. And I'm gonna layer that back on top of each other. I made this like, and I'm gonna have this drag back to out. So this is the last output. I made this kind of square animation. And now kind of from here you can tweak it more. So maybe you want to make it more red purple. Maybe you want to flip X and Y. More things we can add. So after you have this, like, I think it would be nice if it has like this like a drop shadow on here. There's different ways you can do it. One way is I can try to think what's the most straightforward way. I'm gonna add a blur after the rectangle. And increase this blur. Then you can see that now it's kind of has this like this filter size to be really big. Then it has this fuzz over here. And if I change this rectangle fill to be black, oh no, I don't, never mind, just kidding. Back to white. I'm gonna have this behind here. I'm gonna add a level, the black level, and I'll composite this under. Play with the past. Have this over and kind of creates this shadow behind it.
By the way, how do you put the output on the background?
Oh yeah, over here. So this is place. So any tops you can have it, and I recommend. Yeah, I usually make sure I have a null and just like do the display tag on a null, just so I know where it is afterward.
Can you repeat how you do the shadow?
Yeah.
Adjacent to the level?
Yeah. So I did in the rectangle, after a rectangle, I added blur. And I increased the blur so it can be like a fuzzy.
Yeah.
And I know I just wanted like the edge to be black, so I add a level. And on the level, the black level, I can increase it to have it all black, but I just increased it.
Once you go over one.
Yeah.
And when you use the blur, you're also slightly increasing the size of the
Yeah.
rectangle outside of the original.
Okay.
So like if you see when it's the blur is like low, you don't see it, and then you increase it, it creates the fuzz outside of it. And like for example, this level, maybe you change this stuff and you don't know what you changed. You can click on this like target over here, and it'll show you which the parameters that you changed inside of that. So like this blur, if I click on here, it shows you like what things are not like the parameters that's automatically in the default. Yeah, because sometimes you change a line, you're like, what part is it that's like referring? And then you can click on the target. Great.
I don't know if I did something, but I have the background, my rectangle. Yeah, and I don't remember how to remove it.
Yeah.
You see?
Okay. So let's see this background. Alpha fill.
Yeah, the black level parameter is the same as
Let's see what is.
pedestal.
You
basically take all your color values up to a certain point.
Why is yours black?
The higher you take that, the more of the bottom you're making
Okay, different. Okay.
like camera shake.
Another universe window. So yeah, but it's fine. I can.
See that?
Google
Oh,
it later,
background.
but the weird thing is that it comes like with a black background.
Yeah. Let's see what is. Oh.
It's the resolution probably.
Format. B.
Yeah.
I'm actually more used to using Windows. But do you know why her rectangle, when she just puts one in, the background is black rather than having an alpha?
Because the background,
It is 0, yeah.
Oh, weird.
So it's like,
Are we sure it's not the resolution?
I don't think it's because the resolution is connected and stuff.
Right.
And I was
That's
thinking, it was like,
interesting.
yeah, the pixel.
When you just drop a new one, it does it?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So like,
Wow.
yeah. That's kind of cool. No.
Well, and the thing is, it
Yeah.
shouldn't be.
Well, what happens if you change it back? It doesn't. It's nothing because there's alpha 0. Right?
Yeah, that's the weird part. Is without the alpha, it's nothing.
Oh.
Or maybe it's the preview, or if it previews like.
No, because I use these all the time.
Yeah.
I use rectangles for all the different quirky stuff. Because in network settings, the only thing is in network preferences, I think there is something for transparency.
Do you have any transparency in yours?
Do you see
The grids?
Yeah, do any of your
Have the grids? Okay.
So it's probably it's preferences.
So like this is our second animation. So again, like when we're going to make it to audio-reactive, we can play around with changing the amplitude of the noise. Could be one. Or even like the scale of the rectangle. Or maybe like the rotation. That can be something fun if like the music like goes with the speed. So as you kind of like build something, you kind of can think about like how do you make it more interactive. Great. And over here, this top animation, I want to see in the background. I'm going to refer to what I called over here.
Yeah, it's a preference.
And now I can see it. Great, we made 2 animations. And I think, so it's 4:46. Let's have a 10, 15-minute break? 10, 15? Which one do you guys prefer? Huh? Yeah, okay, let's do 15 then. So we'll come back at 5. If you have any questions, I'll like hang around. Use the restroom, save, go get some food, get some water, and we'll kind of talk more about chops. We'll talk a little about chops, then we'll like talk about SOPs, and we'll make like our last animation in SOPs, and then we'll make it interactive. Cool. Now we're all here. I'm going to just kind of talk a little bit about chops and a little bit about SOPs, and then we'll make our last animation. We can make another base, just have all the information in there. So I'll make another base, and I'll just call it chop info. And then we'll go inside of it. So you can double click or press I. Both does the same thing. If we go to the chop page in the operator, you see like tops, there's a lot of stuff. There's more chops and tops. Again, you don't have to know everything. I don't know everything. Brandon doesn't know everything. So don't get overwhelmed when you see it. A common chop, we'll just kind of go over an LFO. You can drop an LFO here. And you see this like LFO happening. And another way you can see this, you can add a trail chop. So you can connect that. You can see this LFO happening visually in this trail. So in this LFO chop, so it's like what's happening, it's going -1 to 1, up and down. But you can change the frequency, so like lowering the frequency makes it go slower. So maybe it's increase it, it goes more static. But you can also change the different types. So rather than you can play around. So this goes to 0 to 1 rather than -1 to 1. You can have a triangle. I like showing like LFOs. I like to see the trail is just like visually, so you can see what's happening versus just seeing the numbers here. So a ramp just keeps going up and then drops back to where it starts. Square makes a square. Like pulse, like. Oops. So whenever you kind of have like any kind of data coming in and you're curious like what is the wave it's making, you can add a trail just as a reference. Later we're going to go into audio, and when we do audio, when we get there, you'll do like an audio file in. And you see the sound wave, but you don't hear anything. And that's because whenever you have an audio file in, you also need to have a device out. Oh, yeah. Audio device out.
So yeah, also when you update Touchdesigner, things change in this. And then start to
Yeah,
get in
you
the
hear it.
habit of something being in one place and it'll suddenly be in a different place.
Yeah, and then also like it kind of gets confused because it's like I sometimes like, why is it not here? It's because I put it audio file out, which is not it. You have an audio device out, and once you like play, you hear this like this music, and it's just like a like a default example music in Touchdesigner. And then like if you don't want to hear anymore, there's like you like just quickly bypass this, which is the arrow, and that kind of turns that off, or like you pass through it. Or you can, on the parameter, this active button, you can turn it on and off through that.
Yeah, the file out is if you want to record something.
Yeah. I'm gonna lower this volume. And also this audio file in, like I can change the different file type. So you can choose your own MP3, which we'll do once we get to audio reactive part. But then like there's just two different default sample files in Touchdesigner, which this is one of them. The other one is just like a sonar.
Oh, that's new.
No, that's been there.
I've never opened that.
Oh, I was there in 2018. Yeah. So cool. I'm gonna just delete that for now. And yeah, if you have like a device in, maybe you have like a mic and you want to have that to be the input, you can use that audio device in. And there's that kind of just we'll get more into chops once we do audio and stuff, but kind of just letting you see the different type. We play with constant. So anything that's chops, you can reference it into parameters. So what we did, I'm gonna split the screen just so we can see what we did in these tops. Over here, we use this constant to reference the resolution. But I can use this LFO to reference any of these. So if I like add a null after this, I'm gonna just first kind of just drag this into, let's see what happens if I drag this into the amplitude and chop reference it. So it changes the amplitude.
So how did you split the screen so we can?
Oh yeah. So this plane layout up here,
Yeah.
I just click on the yeah, and then so now it's like it's separate on two of them, and I just had one in the chop info and one in the noise. So, no problem. So yeah, I changed this, and now this amplitude is going between 0 and 1. And then like if I change the frequency, it also connects to the amplitude. And I can do that to like any of these parameters. But I don't know, this doesn't look nice to me. I don't know if you think this looks beautiful, but I disagree. So oftentimes like you have a specific range you want. So right now this is 0.5. I don't want it to be 0.5 to, oops, sorry. I don't want it to be 0.5 to 0. Maybe I want to be 0.5 or like 0.6 to, no, maybe do, let's play with exponents instead. Maybe I want to put 0.5 to like, sorry, 0.5 to 1 for some reason, rather than being it to be 0 to 1. So you can change the range of this. So rather than having it 0 to 1, I want it to be 0.5 to 1. Before the null, I can add a math chop. And this is a very common chop. Very common. This is the most used operator.
No way.
Jarrett is one of the original founders of Touchdesigner and works. So if he said so, I guess so. And he's actually the one who taught me Touchdesigner originally. So math, in this range tab, you'll see from, so this range is probably, I use this section of the math a lot, but the most, but the math does a lot of great things. But from the range tab, it goes from zero range to range. So you can change pretty much what's starting to what you want. So over here, it's going from 0 to 1. So great, I'm not going to change this, but I want to change this to 0.5 to 1. So now, if I just drag this to the trail, you can see. And this is just to reference. I'm going to change this to all one graph. So the yellow one is like the new one, the one that's after the math. You can see how the range changed. And if I can increase this, maybe I want this to be like 0.5 to 5, then it changed the range of that. So cool, I have this 0.5 to 1. And now when I drag this to the exponent, it has more of the look than I want than without the math. So if I want to see like how is it with it, without, you can click on this arrow to bypass and you'll just like skip it. It's like a way to like knowing what different nodes do. You can like bypass it with the arrow. Cool. So these are the magics of chops. Great, and we're gonna play a lot more with referencing different of these in when we go to Audio-reactive, but is there any questions right now? Cool.
What does frequency max 8 mean? I mean,
Frequency.
max 8, because I assume we can play with this and with the frequency of the song, of the audio
Oh,
file.
so
maybe,
so this is the LFO. So this won't be for the audio, but the frequency is like how
yeah. But I just didn't get the range. I mean, why is 8 the maximum?
Oh, it's just inside is 8, but you can, I believe if you make it to 10, you can have it to be 10 and stuff. It's just default in there, but you can make it higher. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Go crazy.
Yeah.
Great. I'm gonna just want to see this. So I'm gonna just press the square to just max everything back. And I'm going to make another base under this and just call it SOP info. Just let's go a little bit, just talk a little bit about SOPs before we make our last animation.
Do you have your animation visible on the base?
Yes. So on this base, if you go to the common page, this operator viewer option, you can change it. So keep the dot, the period slash that reference whatever inside, and just change the name to what you want to refer to. So I name my null out, so I want to refer that. But if I change to level 1 or ramp 1, it will see whatever the name is. Cool. And this one, I'll just call it SOP info. And let's go inside of it. Let's talk about SOPs. So SOPs is the blue one. We haven't touched any SOPs yet, but SOPs, you can make different 3D is in a family of SOPs, but you don't render in SOPs, which I'll talk about that. But let's just play with adding some shapes in there. So you can add a box, which makes a box. But right now it just looks like a white rectangle because it's just in the front view. If I want to kind of see how it is on the side, you can press the plus to make a viewer active. And if you select left click and drag, you can rotate it. If you scroll, you can make it out and in. And if you right click and drag, you can drag on it. And this viewer active is only within this node. So if you like rotate this and then you add like a null after this, it won't keep this rotation. This is just like referencing in this. If I want to rotate it, actually have to like do it in like the parameters. That changes the like what you're seeing. Does that make sense? Cool. So then this is just like, oh, I kind of just want to have a different view of it. It will just only be within this viewer.
You can also hit W and see wireframe.
Yeah, I was gonna go there. Yeah, so I often like to make it wireframe. You can it only happens after you make it to viewer active and then press W. And so like if you don't make a viewer active, nothing happens. And another thing is once you're also viewer active, you press P, which is confusing because this is also P. This opens and you can see the points. So if you click on this dot, you can see like all the points of like where it intersects. And if you click on this, it like shows the number of points, so it counts here. You can zoom in. So certain things this could be helpful. Where like I'll show you where this is kind of can be useful to see. So this is a box. We can also add a sphere. It's a very common one we're going to play with. And this sphere, I'm going to also change it to wireframe mode. So I'm going to press the plus button and press W. So now I can see like the makeup, the wireframe of this. And this is helpful for like in this sphere primitive type, I can change the different type of, the primitive type of this geometry. So you can just see like, how is it as a primitive? How is it as a polygon? How is it as a mesh? And having it in wireframe mode, you can see that better than without it.
But how can we use this?
Huh?
How can we use this? It affects also the outside.
At the outside. Oh, so
the primitive type. How can we like take advantage of it?
yeah. So we're gonna play during the when we're gonna make our 3D animation. There's certain things that you can what we're gonna play with is called instancing, and that's the magic of SOPs in Touchdesigner is instancing, is which you pretty much can clone certain geometry onto the points of another geometry. And so depending on what you are, like polygons are better than like having mesh, and we're going to see how like it has a different effect of the different type of primitive type. And for this polygon in the details page, it has this frequency tab, and you can like increase that and can make it have more geometry on it. So because like this is polygon, this one is a mesh. So like the difference makeup of it. And so we have two spheres. There's also a torus, which is like a donut. I'm gonna make it wireframe mode, and then if I like rotate it, you can see. And this also, not all of the different geometry has a primitive type. This one also, you can choose it to change it to a polygon. There's also, you can just have a line. So a line is over here, you can change the number of points of line, and this is like a line. SOP is one of the things that I think it's very helpful to use seeing the points. So it actually like show you the dots of the different points on here. Because if I don't have this on, then I don't know if I'm increasing the number of points on this line, I can't see it. So if I highlight this, I can see the number of points. So I made a viewer active, and then I click on P. So it's confusing because P also opens this parameter box, but if you make a viewer active, it also opens this like display option box.
Can I select the point and drag it and place it somewhere else? Or
No. So if I want to make this diagonal example, some ways a little bit. I can. So this is now straight.
The point A is where it starts, and point B is where it ends.
Yeah.
It's X, Y, Z. Yeah.
So yeah, you can use that to navigate, and then you can like make it more than one. So then, if you have a higher number, has more space between the points too. Cool. There's also SOPs for more flat shapes. So like if I have a circle, this is a like flat 2D circle inside of it. And also I'm gonna make this wireframe and add the points in this. So you can see this has 40 divisions, so it has a 40 points. So if I decrease this, if I decrease it enough, it's like 3, it becomes a triangle. And increase it, like it becomes more of a circle. Oops. And I'll add a grid. So a little thing. So this is a grid, and there's also a rectangle. They're both 2D, or they're both like, yeah, one plane. But if you see this, like, what's the difference between a grid and a rectangle? It looks the same. But if I make this wireframe, you can see a grid, it has all these different columns and rows. And like if I select it, it has this parameter for rows and columns, and you can increase it and decrease it. And while this one only has like 4 points. So cool. Another like 3D shape. There's a tube. I never use a tube, but exists. It's like a uglier torus cousin.
The cool thing about the tube, if you in the radius parameter on the second one, if you take it down, it makes this cone bar.
Yeah.
That's like the most handy thing about the tube. If you want to,
Yeah.
make a light.
And yeah, like also like, yeah, if you can play like this torus, it also has like an inner radius and outer radius, so you can make it like a oops, smaller donut, or like a bigger donut, and play with that. Cool, so we have all these. You can do things onto, so okay, cool, I have this geometry. What if I want it to like move? You can add a transform. I'm gonna add a transform after the torus. And I want it to rotate. So if I want it to like keep, oops. So this is, if you click on this, like this is TX, TY, RX, RY, RZ. So like if I wanted to keep rotating it this way, or I want to keep rotating it this way. Yeah, I want to rotate it this way. Handy dandy abs time dot frame. Now it's rotating. Now I don't have to manually scroll it up forever. And maybe I want it faster. I can times it 2, make it faster, or slower, times 0.5, make it half as fast, slow, half slower. Maybe I want this in both the X and Y. I can do that. Great. Another like, oh, this is also a good way to show like the different type of primitive types is after the sphere, I'm gonna add a noise. Fun noise. Ooh, look, it's moving now. And if you like make a wireframe, I think it's kind of cooler to kind of see that happen. And you see this noise has like similar parameters from the noise top. So you like, it has a harmonics, it has the amplitude. So this is when we do audio-reactive, something you can play with is like if you have a noise, you can change the exponent of it. Like, ooh, louder, ba, ba, ba. Or the amplitude. And so like, if I have this detail low, and I add this noise to the sphere that is the mesh, it just creates like a different look, depending also the amount of geometry.